Our coverage of the State of the Union speech continues. Tonight, President Obama called on Democrats and Republicans to support federal spending in core areas while making a commitment to rein in the nation's debt. The president promoted spending in areas like education and transportation and promised government reforms. Mr. Obama told Congress that the nation's political leadership is now, quote, a shared responsibility. So
what do those outside the Capitol building think about tonight's speech? Jack Berkman is a Republican strategist. Robert Weiner is on the Democratic side. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Robert, I'll start with you. Sounded like a pep rally to me. Was it enough to buoy the hopes and allay the fears of the record unemployed?
Well, it was a very working together kind of a speech. And it's the kind of leadership that President Obama has shown since the election that has actually buoyed him up 15% in the polls. The proposals that I haven't heard talked about in the media, but it just means people didn't read the speech or listen to it, of 100,000 new teachers, 80% of Americans to have rail, protecting the health care of Americans, leaving Iraq finally, and going to Latin America, where the Chilean president never even gave America any credit, but we created the drill, the capsule, and the health care that saved those miners.
Jack Berkman, let's bring you in here. All of those sounded like what the Republicans were claiming would be exposed this evening, which are investments, they say, quote unquote, i.e. spending. Do you see a lot of spending in this?
There's no question. I think it was a decent speech, which for Obama is a good speech. He's a good public speaker, but it's horribly riddled with contradictions. I mean, they say they want to create jobs. The only thing that means is they want to spend more money to do it. I mean, for Barack Obama to talk about cutting spending is almost Orwellian. It's like 1984. I mean, this guy threw $4 trillion out the door, and now he wants to come in and talk about spending. Somebody's IQ would have to be less than 65 to give any kind of serious credibility to that.
Yeah, but Jack, the other side of that, obviously, the other side of that coin is that the Republicans spent so much in the two terms under Bush, and then now suddenly turning around and saying Obama can't spend any money.
No question, Brian. You're 100% right, and I was one of the ones that was critical of George Bush with the Medicare expansion and everything else. I see a little bit of a danger for the president tonight, and that is he's skillfully trying to move to the center the way Bill Clinton did in '95, but there's a risk because he's yet to solidify his base on the left. I think his popularity rating has been buoyed by the shooting. But there's a danger. He's up to 55%. There's a danger in believing he's secure because there's a real risk that he could yet be primaried by somebody on the left. So this move to the center may prove to be politically dangerous for him.
Robert Weiner, my question to you would be, these presidencies, and the midterms would back this up, are determined by the middle, not the far left, not the far right. Do you think that President Obama his popularity is rising because he's moving more to the center and he's working with the Republicans?
That's absolutely right. While the Republicans are doing a myth of saying that we need to attack Social Security and privatize it and raise the ages, it turns out that now the facts are coming out that Social Security hasn't contributed one dime to the deficit, and it's funded for 40 years. So he was very wise to knock out the idea of cutting Social Security tonight. And he also... What didn't come out tonight was that deficit that Jack is talking about, $4 trillion. That's the tax cuts that the Republicans insisted on. That's jacking us up from 10 to $14 trillion.
Nobody's talking about Social Security. What the Republicans are talking about is making across-the-board cuts in a lot of these agencies. Now,
that's not true. That's not true.
I'll be tough on my own party. I'm a little tired of symbolic votes. I don't want to see a symbolic health repeal. I want to see a real health repeal. I don't want to see symbolic cuts in the EPA and the Department of Commerce. I want to see real cuts. So it wouldn't, Brian, it wouldn't bother me at all if Republicans want to do a little bit of what Newt Gingrich did in '95, maybe do it more skillfully and go down the path of risking a government shutdown to get some of this stuff done.
And Robert, I'll give you the last word here. Is a government shutdown really what is America sent the Republicans A, to Washington to do, and B, really the solution here when we need to keep things going?
Well, of course, there should not be a shutdown, and there won't be a shutdown unless the Republicans insist on trying to cut the Social Security benefits that they are threatening to, because Paul Ryan does have that in his plan, or to take away the health care from both the seniors and kids that are in the bill that people now want. They want their kids under 26 to keep their health care plans. So if they insist on those budgetary tricks that are disastrous for Americans, then we'll have a confrontation. So it's also up to the Republicans to share in the responsibility of governing properly.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Robert Weiner, Jack Berkman, as always, thank you both for your time today.
Thank you, Brian.